So with Amanda Nunes both having victories over Ronda Rousey and Cris Cyborg, Ronda Rousey in 48 seconds, Cris Cyborg in 51 seconds, she's obviously putting herself in a position where I don't see how you could argue anyone else other than her being the greatest women's fighter of all time. You could maybe make a case that she had some losses early in her career, and until she beats those fighters like Kat Zingano, then you really can't completely say it. That's not exactly how this works. Greatest of all time is just a ranking. You don't have to defeat everyone you fight against. You just have to be better than everyone else. And I don't see anyone else who has a resume that matches Amanda Nunes. So I think it's fair to call her the best ever. So the next question then becomes, is she ever going to become marketable? She wasn't really that marketable before the Rousey fight. Really didn't get a whole lot of rub off of it. Wasn't super marketable before this fight. Doesn't seem like she's quite gotten the rub off of it yet, but we're not going to know until her next fight. But a lot of stories have come out since this fight, including Dana White talking about her in the post-fight press conference about whether or not she is ready to become the next star. So I'll just kind of run you through an article right here. So this is from Bloody Elbow. So it says, the UFC's first female double champion, Nunes is a star in the making, Dana White said on Saturday night. And then they kind of point out a few things here, and I think one of them that I keep hearing a lot really needs to be addressed is this thing about her being LGBT and how that's supposed to make her a star. I don't buy that at all, and I'll kind of explain why later. But just to go through the first paragraph, just kind of give a rundown on what people are saying. So he said, throughout her women's bantamweight title run, or throughout her reign, the UFC has been criticized for its inability to market her. She holds marquee wins over MMA pioneers and ex-champions, and Rousey and Tate, is the promotion's first openly gay champion, and has been on top of some major cards, including UFC 200. Although that being said, she hasn't really resonated with the fans. And then they said her most recent fight before Saturday, a title defense against Raquel Pennington, drew less than 100,000 pay-per-view buys, and I believe she was on top of the card at that. So the question now becomes, after headlining a card and getting less than 100,000 pay-per-view buys, now having this big fight against Cris Cyborg, she's had other big fights that have drawn before. Is she finally going to start to draw her own audience where people are actually now interested in seeing Amanda Nunes? As far as that goes, I mean, possibly you would figure that what she did to Ronda Rousey, if the fighting on its own was enough, then that probably would have given her a bit of an audience, and it really hasn't. So I don't see why the fight with Cyborg is really going to be a whole lot different for her. I can't imagine that her next fight, no matter who it's against, is really going to be that big of a draw unless it's a rematch with Cyborg, and then maybe then you can kind of sell it just based off the specific matchup. But it's not really as much about the specific fighter as it is about the matchup between the two of them. But beyond that, in this argument about, well, she's gay, therefore she should be very marketable, I keep hearing this, and I don't think people realize how bad of an argument it is. So first off, to say that people who are gay allies are therefore going to be more likely to want to follow someone just because they're gay. It's one thing to go on Twitter and post about how you support the gay community, or go on Facebook and say how much you support gay marriage, but actually taking time out of your Saturday to watch someone because you weren't interested in them except for the fact that they're gay, I don't know if that's actually going to be much of a pull. Beyond that, a lot of the people who would fall into the community of people you would imagine as the types who would be the allies, and the types who would probably want to see her because she's such a outstanding athlete and such an outstanding gay athlete at that, tend to be leaning to the left, and the left is not the most tolerant towards gays who don't really seem to follow leftist politics. Amanda Nunes does not follow leftist politics. As a matter of fact, when Jair Bolsonaro got elected in office, Donald Trump put out a tweet, said, had a very good conversation with the newly elected president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, who won his race by a substantial margin. We agreed that Brazil and the United States will work closely together on trade, military, and everything else. Excellent call. Wish him congrats. So Nunes retweeted this and then also added, amen, thank you very much. And if you just go through the comments off of this, and some of these are in Portuguese, and my Portuguese is not very good, so I'll kind of give you a rough translation. So the top one was, what's wrong with you? And then it was just a bunch of quotes that he had that weren't coming across good. So it's like, you, a woman minister, are very ugly. I wouldn't rape you because you are not worth it. And a bunch of other ones like that. And you saw a lot of this around the time that Bolsonaro got into, or won his election. There were a lot of people who were making articles with quotes that he had and saying he's like Trump, maybe even worse. A luchadora. So this one is a fight that I like, that an MMA fighter I like, and part of the MMA community. So it sounds like this person, Alexa, isn't very happy with her being a well-known LGBT fighter who's going out and supporting Jair Bolsonaro. Seriously, Amanda, is what that one seems to say. Someone did a gif of her doing the shush thing. So they kind of want her to do the same. Is this real? just a lot of comments that aren't exactly, dude, no, what are you thinking? They just aren't very positive towards her for doing this. So it's worth noting that, yes, she is LGBT. That doesn't mean that she's going to be the most well-liked member of that community. There was obviously a very well-known article that was put up on Deadspin about a month ago. It said conservative gays need to shut the fuck up, with the whole point of this being that if you're a conservative, or if you're gay but you're conservative, then therefore you're kind of working against your own interests. Now, I don't buy that, but that's an argument that's being made, and it's an argument that seems to be fairly popular on the left, and this actually wasn't as controversial an article as you would imagine. Obviously, it drew a lot of ire on the right, but on the left, it wasn't like it drew a bunch of ire there too. It's not like they were like, "Hey, we support the LGBT community regardless of what their political beliefs are. This isn't cool." It was more just like, yeah, fine, we get it. And I feel like that was kind of telling, the response that came to this article. And lastly, the last point I want to make on how marketable being LGBTQ makes you, I guess my question would be, what sports stars who are LGBT ever really became superstars just because of that? The best example I can think of would be Michael Sam, who obviously drew a lot more attention as a 6th round pick for being gay than anyone else. But first off, he's a guy. Second off, he's in a sport, the NFL, where there aren't any other out athletes that are currently competing there, so that made him unique. As far as women athletes go, there are plenty of out female athletes. If you look at the WNBA, you look at the NWHL. If being gay was a gay woman was that marketable in the world of sports, you would imagine that the NWHL and the WNBA would be doing fantastic. As a matter of fact, they're not. Both are losing money. The WNBA, I believe, is losing about $10 million a year, and that's with all the help they have from the NBA, which I can't imagine, if you're a basketball league, being partnered with a better group than the NBA, considering how successful they've been lately. And then for the NWHL, there's another female hockey league. I forgot which one it is, but both of them are now kind of coming out publicly and saying, "Hey, look, we kind of have to merge together. If the two of us are separate, we're both going to fail." And even if they do merge together, I think they're probably both still going to fail. So just because you have well-known lesbian athletes doesn't mean that the market's going to be like, "Oh, hey, this is something special. This is something we want to look into."